Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula says the Phala Phala report will not be discussed by delegates during the continuation of the virtual National Elective Conference. He says the party's National Executive Committee will instead deal with the matter. Let's unpack this now with political analyst Rebone Tau. Rebone, a very good evening to you. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Thank you for your time. President Ramaphosa's Phala Phala matter dominated internal party discussions ahead of the conference in December already. Today, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula reiterated that this issue is not up for discussion at conference. How do you think Mbalula's remarks should be interpreted?
Good evening, Paul. Good evening to the viewers at home. I think this is how the ANC operates. There's nothing shocking by his statement. I mean, if you look at the era, former President Jacob Zuma, how the National Executive Committee dealt with this issue. But also this shows the caliber of branches of the ANC or delegates that participated at this 55th National Conference, because this was an issue where the National Executive Committee, after the Integrity Committee presented a report to them, about different people within the National Executive Committee or members of the ANC, pertaining their names being compromised and their reputations being compromised. And there was an agreement by the National Executive Committee that it will be part of the organizational report, it will be presented at conference, and one had thought that this will be then giving an opportunity also to members of the ANC to really reflect, when they speak about renewal, what is this renewal all about? So the renewal process, it seems that it is just a mere slogan within the ANC, because its own members have decided not to actually challenge the National Executive Committee of the ANC that had outgone at the 54th, especially when the organizational report was presented as this issue of Phala Phala was part of the organizational report.
This is a new National Executive Committee, which is said to be the one that will be tasked with dealing with this matter. How do you imagine that to happen, given the logistics of the composition and President Cyril Ramaphosa being the head of it?
Absolutely. I mean, President Ramaphosa winning this conference, running for his second term, nothing will be dealt with, because it's all about a game of powers. We saw how Gwede Mantashe, even building up to the elective conference, if you remember the likes of Dr. Zweli Mkhize, indicating how Gwede Mantashe was bringing some of the National Executive members when they were even discussing the Phala Phala report pertaining the parliament, process, So obviously he comes back as the chair, someone who played a very crucial role also in supporting President Ramaphosa for his second term. So it's all about, Fikile Mbalula, who ran under President Ramaphosa's slate, one can say, coming in, if you look at the top six alone, the people who did not run from that slate, you could say it was Paul Mashatile and Nomvula Mkonyana, but the rest of the five people were part of the faction. So he comes back strong. He's going to make sure that this issue is actually also not dealt with at that level, where an ANC can actually shock the nation, when it deals with complex matters. It will be one of those, remember under President Zuma, when we're told that even on the Nkandla matter, they take collective responsibility. Because this issue is a very sensitive matter. And why I say this, no one speaks about the financial illicit flows. The same guy who then says now he was the one who was buying these bulls, he's linked to al-Bashir in Sudan. If you know al-Bashir, the dictator that he was as the president, we should be worried, And for the man to, even in one of the interviews that he did with one of the international media companies, saying that he walked in OR Tambo with such money, that is a serious problem. And for the president not to even question how did this money arrive at his house, so much money in dollars.
We should be worried. It's a serious problem. Is Phala Phala a crisis for South Africa, or was it perhaps a crisis for the Cyril Ramaphosa presidency and for the ANC as a political party?
Phala Phala is not a crisis for South Africa. When you speak to ordinary South Africans are just worried about issues of jobs, the issues of load shedding and so forth. So the Phala Phala issue was more also an ANC internal issue, because if you speak to people, as I say, we're not really preoccupied. Some felt that, no, this is his money. But the problem that people don't know much about what it means when we talk about illicit financial flows, because that money could have came from any country, taxpayers' money from any country. And illicit financial flows, by the way, it's a serious crisis. I remember a few years back, the AU even commissioned former President Thabo Mbeki, to do a study on financial illicit flows. And from the 5 countries, South Africa was one of them. And there was also a lot of money leaving this country. So we should ask ourselves how much money also is coming into this country, coming from whether terrorism groups that are moving money around, because this is a sophisticated cartel of people who are moving serious money around the world.
And with more and more South Africans, especially former ANC voters, letting the party know that it doesn't have that natural right to their vote, how much do you believe is at stake for the ANC, especially with President Ramaphosa today telling conference delegates that the ANC must earn the trust of South Africans?
Absolutely, and the trust also will also pertain how the ANC deal with their own internal issues, because you can't also be subjective when you deal with certain issues within the ANC. The ANC needs to show itself that it's indeed in a renewal process to give South Africans not a situation where the president of the ANC is the most powerful. It has happened, as I said, under former President Jacob Zuma, where he was a very powerful man. He could not be touched within the ANC. And these are some of the things that leads the ANC to not hold even some of its deployees accountable. Because when the president is compromised, how do you then deal with the other issues in terms of even corruption that is taking place, what at local government, because we know that there's a lot of problems even around service delivery.
Yeah. The Zondo Commission helped expose what happens when a ruling party and some of its politicians and officials feel unconstrained by institutional frameworks. We heard President Ramaphosa calling for urgency on policy implementation. Where does this now leave the question of implications which should follow with the failure to implement policies?
Absolutely. I mean, also how the ANC will deal with the issue of the Zondo Commission will be very interesting. And why I say this, some that are close to President Ramaphosa, have been implicated in the Zondo Commission. People like Zizikot, even people like Kwede Mantashe on the Bosasa saga, the security upgrades, people like Thaba Makwetla, people like Kumbuzo Shabedi on the being a board member of Dinel, So the issue is that the ANC, if it is serious, which I think the ANC at this present moment is not really serious about dealing with very complex issues that pertain even their own deployed cadres, So it starts with their own deployed cadres. If really they're serious about making sure that they implement policies, because even the president, you must remember, he's a deployed cadre of the ANC. He's not just the president of the ANC. He's deployed by the ANC to become the president of the republic. So the president of the ANC should be held accountable. Not only him, even those that will come after President Ramaphosa should know that they are deployees. And one of the things I think they will have to do, the ANC at this present moment, especially within the SGOs, make sure that they have KPIs for all the ministers who are deployed to check vis-a-vis in terms of the resolutions of conference, which ministers are implementing, which ones are not implemented. So that when there's a call for a reshuffle, it must be based on merit, on who has implemented the resolutions of conference, because the ANC's got the best policies. If you look at the policies, but the problem becomes implementation. I can take you back to 2012. I remember during the 2012 policy conference, the then President Jacob Zuma speaking about even the implementation of policies at a local government. And this is where service delivery also lags at local government.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there. Thank you for your time. Political analyst Rebone Tau.